Hello, everybody. Fiona Lukeis here for Friday's live, February 3rd, 2023. Can you believe we're already in February in 2023? It is a beautiful day here, bit cold, but sunny. So beautiful and cold and sunny. Is that possible? Is that even a thing? I am, we're in the middle of summer here, and I know most of you guys are in the middle of winter when you're all on the other side of the world. I always find that absolutely extraordinary. So I always like to talk about the weather. I get very invested in where the weather's at and what it's doing. So it is a bit of a mixed bag here in Melbourne, but it's still really nice. We are in the middle of summer, and hopefully I'll get out on the paddleboard this weekend and have a paddle, which I love to do in summer. So today's live is, I'm here to answer any questions that you have. I've got a couple of questions that have come through, so I'll answer those in a minute. But first of all, I'd love you to just say hi. Let me know where you're listening from in the world. It always takes a few minutes for the notification to filter through that the live is on. So I'll give everybody a chance to join in. My puppy, I've got a puppy, and he is just going berserk at the moment. He just started going berserk as I press live on the microphone. So excuse me, I may need to put him outside. He is jumping up and down on my bookshelf. You probably can't see him right now, but he's right there trying to grab stuff. Hey, Deb, thanks for saying hi. Hi, Jason. Thank you. Hi, Jane. Hi, Jane. Thanks for saying hi from Tassie. Hi, Lorianne from Alberta, Canada. Okay, wow, beautiful. I have a son who is in Whistler, Canada at the moment, and I must admit I was just speaking to him on Sunday. He's a little bit homesick, and he said, "Mum, would you think about coming to visit me?" So I am in the process of looking into whether I can go visit him and spend some time with him before May, so in March, April. So I may well be in Canada within the next couple of months just to check in and see how he's doing. Hi, Julie. Thanks for saying hi. Hey, Peter. 39 degrees here in Brisbane. Whoa, that is super hot, isn't it? Yeah, and with a humidity of like 100%. That's the other problem when it's really hot. You've got this really high humidity. This is, just so you know, I'm not making this up. This is this puppy that is literally chewing on my ankles, my wrists, he's just chewing on everything. My bookcase. This is Arlo. For those of you who don't know, my beautiful dog, who is pictured with me on my website, and I cannot bring myself to change the picture just yet. I just can't. He passed away really unexpectedly in October last year. So this is Arlo, who is still going through that really intense puppy phase. So anyway, I'm sorry, a bit distracted by him. I actually think I'm gonna have to put him outside. I'm sorry, guys. 1 second. All right, you say goodbye to everybody, and going out. Okay, sorry everyone. You're in upstate New York, and it's minus 20 with the Julie, I cannot even imagine how cold that must be. Wow, that's these are things us Aussies just don't really understand. Okay, Jason, how should one respond if their partner has no interest whatsoever in being intimate when in the past was one of our strongest bonds? Great question, Jason. I guess you've got to get really, really curious without being harassing. Okay. You have to be curious without harassing. So what do I mean by that? You've got to be able to come to a conversation where you are neutral and curious. I cannot tell you how important this is, and you have to be listening really, really well. So that requires you to be present and like really, really present. I can't tell you. I really, if I could say to you, one of the greatest skills you could ever develop in life, no matter what you're dealing with in your life, is the ability to be present and deeply listen, and therefore curious. I'm telling you, people who can embody those things find life far, far easier than people who do not. People like that, who are present, who deeply listen and are curious, will be far more successful, happier, connected than people who are not. And I was actually saying this on my on my live call with my relatable students on Wednesday. This is something that holds people back because people think they're better at those things than they actually are. It's the one area of life where people will overestimate their capability around. People will say that they're listening, they'll say that they're present, and they'll say that they're curious, and they are not, and they don't realize it. So I'm not saying they're like they're making it up. Like they genuinely think they are better than what they actually are. But you do those three things really, really well, you will be more successful at work. You will find that you will get promotions at work far, far quicker than someone who does not do that. You will have a greater circle of friends. You will enjoy more well-being, a greater level of calm. You will find yourself making better choices for yourself emotionally, spiritually, mentally. You will find yourself obviously exceptionally good at relationships. You will find yourself a better parent, a better friend. You will like yourself more. I cannot tell you the unlimited positives from that. And I say this with all due love and respect to everybody out there, but it's the three things that people are the weakest at. Even people who are high up in management, executives, CEOs. I've worked with people high up. They don't do this very well, and that's where the friction and the problem starts and ends. If you're in sales, these are things you have to be exceptionally good at. And obviously in our relationships, these are the things that we absolutely need to do well. Now, the good thing about it is anyone can do those things well. Anyone. Like this has got nothing to do with your levels of emotional intelligence, what's happened in your past, how old you are, your background. This is something that humans can be really, really, really great about. But I'm telling you, people are not. And so the energy that they bring does not draw what they're looking for from the people around them. Because when you are present and you are curious and you truly are and you're not loaded, and you have to really know yourself really well to be able to know that, you will draw out a different response with people. And you'll be able to have a different type of conversation. So but see, the thing is, Jason, if she's getting upset when you ask questions, then you want to get curious about that, right? You want to get curious about that, but you have to be curious about it without getting upset. So an example of that would be, and again, you have to be neutral within yourself. So I'm gonna guess that you know that you're neutral. All right, I'm gonna have to presume that. So if you're neutral and you're getting curious, you will keep holding space and saying, how come it upsets you when I ask you questions about this? What's going on? And then you're going to give her a chance to respond. Okay? How come this is something that bothers you so much? And you're going to give her a chance to respond. Now, if she says to you, I need some space, you say, okay, no worries, but we do need to come back to this because it's really important. It's important to me. It's important to our relationship. So we do need to come back to this. But if you need some space, that's cool. That's okay. But we do need to come back to this. So you've got to be super neutral. See that the whole way through? But you have to be curious. See, often what I find happens in conversations when there's difficult conversations is that people will get put off by the other person being upset, and then they'll stop, and then they get upset, and then the whole feeling drops, and the conversation then develops this very negative undertone or this negative anchor. So when you come back to it again and again, it becomes really difficult for you to get past that because there's all this upset feeling around it. Okay, so you have to be curious, but there can't be urgency in your curiosity, right? And it's got to be that you've got to be able to hold space well and ask questions. Now, yes, like Julie's saying, change of life libido could be dropping. But it's not about why. Do you know what I mean? There could be any number of reasons. It's about being able to talk about it first and foremost, right? And then, yes, being able to get to that point because it might well be that. But it's something that you need to be able to talk about. And I tell you, a really important skill people need. So as I said at the start of this live, people who deeply listen, who know how to be present and know when they are present and are curious, right? People who do that well, and I cannot tell you how rare that is, okay? People who do those things really, really well evoke something in people around them. They evoke a sense of safety. They evoke a calm. They create emotional intimacy because the other person relaxes. Now, the reason why this is so important is because obviously from there, you're going to build goodwill about that conversation. You're going to build goodwill in knowing that you can have difficult conversations without it falling to pieces. This is something people just don't have any faith in. And this is why a lot of relationships break down. And this is where people are often when they come to me. So we can't talk about anything because every time we do, the conversation goes haywire. And people are walking on eggshells around each other. And so if you're walking on eggshells around someone, you're not neutral, right? You're not calm, you're not present. So all of that starts happening, and then people start retreating into themselves because they don't feel safe to have a conversation without trusting that the level of feeling will still stay high. It feels like everything's going to fall through the floor. So people get really frightened. They get really frightened of their reaction. They get frightened of the other person's reaction, and they bring that into the conversation, even if they think they're calm. They've got that undertone. This is why it's so important that you understand this stuff, because when you do those things well, what you create on the other end is really, really, really quite extraordinary. When another person feels safe around you, you know, the best of them comes out. A different aspect of them comes out. And you actually start to get to know another person's reality. So key skill in relationships, which a lot of people don't understand as well, and comes from those three things, is your ability to speak to someone else's reality. Now, you've got to understand separate realities and all of that stuff, right? But your ability to speak to someone else's reality is very, very, very important. Generally, most people are not speaking to someone else's reality. They are speaking to their own. And they think they're speaking to someone else. And so you just have this misfire. Like conversations kind of look like this, where you're missing each other completely. You're not actually connecting. There's no what I would call meeting of the minds. There's no partnership. There's no feeling of connection and being on the same page. And so, you know, we just miss vital pieces of information. So this is a skill. Like I would say to people, if you want to be successful in life, if you want to, you know, let's talk about it. If you want to make money, whether it be as an employee for someone else or in your own business, these are just essential, fundamental life skills that you need. Okay, truly, because people who are successful, who are making money, who are getting promoted, they do those things super, super well. Generally. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. I get that, but generally, that's what people are bringing to the table. All right. So, and this is a muscle that you've got to build within yourself. But the point is, you knowing when you're there, and I would say most people do not. They think they do, but they don't because they're not sure what to look for. Right. But when you do have that, it is truly remarkable how well you can hold space, how well you can listen, how connected you are, and what you actually learn and discover about the other person. You know, I've had couples come to me, or families come to me, or teams come to me, whatever, right? People have been together for a while and they think they know everything there is to know about each other. And then they develop this skill and they start asking different questions. They start showing up from a neutral place. Their energy changes. They're present. They hold space. And all of a sudden they learn something about their partner's reality that they never, ever, ever knew. Completely fresh information. This is how you keep relationships fresh. This is how things don't go stale. So that even if you're with someone for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that it still has a feeling of freshness because you are curious about each other. You're not operating from assumptions. And this is a huge thing that people do all the time. Operate from assumptions. Oh, yeah, I know why they do that. It's because of X. Right? So they're not curious. They've stopped being curious. That stopped a long time ago because they think they know all there is to know. I promise you that is not true. There will be things about the people in your life that you absolutely do not know. And if you are curious and present, would surprise you. Really, really surprise you. So I can't tell you how important that is. Julie. Oh, hey, Mick. Hi. Thanks for saying hi. Nice to hear from you. Like a calm curiosity. Yeah, it is. But it's a neutral curiosity, right? You can, people have to know when they're loaded and when they're not loaded. So many people are loaded and they think they're not loaded. Like, this is a massive blind spot for people. They think they're loaded they think they're neutral and they're totally loaded. Now, do you guys know what I mean by being totally loaded? Just checking. Sorry, I'm drinking tea. Peppermint tea, if anyone's wondering. Very good for you. Does everyone know what I mean by being loaded? Okay, so Jane, I'm trying to get curious, but my partner keeps responding with, we've already talked about this. He doesn't want to go over old ground. Okay. All right. So if your partner doesn't want to go around, and look, I'm going to say, Jane, number one, if your partner's saying this, then either I'm gonna presume, without knowing a lot of things, goodwill's probably pretty low. Okay, so when goodwill is low, people don't listen very well. Okay, they don't listen very well. They tend to assume that the other person doesn't have their best interests at heart. People don't trust that they have each other's best interests at heart, so it becomes harder. All right. Now, if you're curious right, okay, so it's really hard, Jane, when goodwill is low. You got to build that first. All right. I cannot tell you how important building goodwill is. Truly, 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 truly. And you do not need to solve all of your problems in order to build goodwill. That is a complete and utter furphy. In fact, one diminishes the other. So problem solving when you're in a space of goodwill plummets goodwill even further. Why? Because of what I just said. You do not have enough baseline there, right, between the two of you of trust. And I'm talking about emotional trust. The baseline is I represent my interests, I represent my interests. The baseline is I'm defensive, I'm defensive. The baseline is I'm not really going to listen to you because I don't trust you. I'm not really going to listen to you because I don't trust you. The baseline is one of impatience. The baseline is one of fault finding. The baseline is of assuming the worst. Okay? So just think about this for a second. I see this as such a massive issue in the couples counseling space. I cannot tell you. That's an innocent mistake, I think, made in the couples counseling space. You put two people who are in that frame of mind with each other and then ask them to talk about problems where there's a huge emotional charge and people feel unheard and upset about anyway. It's literally like throwing kerosene onto a fire. It makes no sense to me. It achieves nothing and is very disheartening for people, right? So you can build goodwill without doing all of that stuff. And in fact, when goodwill is high, your problems don't look the same. They literally look completely different. I know that sounds hard to imagine from where you may be sitting right now, but when goodwill is high, problems look very, very, very different. I've been working with a couple in the States, and this is exactly what they are discovering. They had very, very low goodwill. We're in counseling for years, so I give them kudos for that. They were in counseling for years, but every time they would come out, they'd have a huge fight. They wouldn't speak to each other for a week, and then they kept thinking that their problems were even worse and more intense than they realized, and this was just going to be harder and harder, and they were just their own spirit was just getting lower and lower and lower and lower, right? And so I've started working with them. We're not dealing with that yet. We're building goodwill, which they've been doing. And all of a sudden, through the lens of goodwill, they're seeing each other differently. They're not fault finding anywhere near the way they were before. They're more relaxed, they're more playful, and they're actually communicating completely differently because they're in a better feeling, because there's more trust, because they're trusting that they can hang out without everything falling to pieces. So, it is harder when goodwill is low, Jane. So increase goodwill. Absolutely. Get curious from there, and you'll find that you'll draw something out from the other person because they won't be sort of sitting there waiting. Okay, where are we going with this? God, I don't want to talk about it because that means we're going to end up in another fight, right? That I don't want to talk about this because every time we do, I feel awful, you feel awful, and it's a disaster. So do you know what I mean? Like there's got to be that. So there's a few things here. There's got to be that layer of goodwill first. This is the very first thing I teach people. When you understand that and you create goodwill, then you can actually have a completely different experience of each other. But this is something that people don't look at enough. They get straight into let's talk, let's communicate, but it's like you can't talk. People can't communicate well when goodwill is low. It's just impossible because people are too defensive, they're too charged, and they're too fragile, right? So you've got to change that first, and then the other stuff becomes super easy. I think this is a really big furphy mistake that people make. We have to fix our problems in order to feel good. No, you don't. You can do it the other way around. Truly, you can. And, obviously, this is everything I teach in Relatable. Speaking of Relatable, I want to just talk about that for 1 second. If you have been listening to my lives for a while and you are on the fence, I am about to put the price of Relatable up considerably, okay? It's something I should have done a couple of years ago. It's been on the cards for a long time. There's a number of reasons why. The cost of software has gone up. The cost of just having it online has gone up exponentially. And I just need to put it up to meet those costs. And it's time for there to be a price rise. So if you are considering joining me, now is the time, because this time next week, the price will have gone up considerably, not just a small amount, a decent amount. Okay, it's quite a big price jump. And I'm not making this up. I'm not saying this to put pressure on you, but I want to give you a heads up and be fully transparent. If this is something that you are considering, now is the time, because like I said, it's going up quite considerably within the next week. I've just been in a meeting with my team, with my techie people, with my whatever, and where all the wheels are in motion for this to happen. It will definitely be higher by my next live. Okay, so if you are considering it, now is the time. Thank you, Julie. Yes, Relatable is amazing. Truly, it's very different to anything you will have done before. People cannot believe how good they feel, what they're learning, what they're seeing. And I know that sounds too good to be true, okay? I know that sounds too good to be true, but you've got to trust me, guys. Honestly, I'm not asking these people to say this. I'm truly not. I'm not paying Julie any money. Oh, Susan, thanks, Susan. I appreciate that. I'm not, okay? But I'm just letting you know, full disclosure. Okay, I'll put the link to Relatable in the chat. And but if you go to buy it this time next week, it will not be the price it is now. All right. Thanks, Julie. I really appreciate that. Now, I do have a question here that someone has sent in to me, so I'm just going to read that out now. And here is the link. Thanks, Susan and Julie. Appreciate your support. And Mick, these guys are doing Relatable at the moment, right? Julie, Susan, Mick, they're all doing Relatable. Like I said, I'm not telling them to say this, but thank you. I appreciate your support. So the link is now in the chat. I'll just pop it up here. This time next week, it will have gone up in enormous, like a pretty substantial amount. All right. Okay. So next question. This was sent through by someone this morning, I think, actually. My husband says he isn't in love with me anymore. We have had a hard 10 months, and where usually we work through it and stand by each other, he hasn't. I have said you can fall in love with me again. Am I right? It's a really, really great question. First of all, I want to say I'm so sorry that you're going through that. That's really tough. Okay. I'm really, really sorry to hear that. Relationships can be so painful. They really, really can. You know, it's um, it's such a, you know, it's the, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's the area of our life where we get the biggest growth because of it. Like you grow exponentially through your relationships, like nowhere else in your life do you grow. You grow emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like truly. Our relationships are the greatest opportunity, but they can also be our greatest downfall because of it. Okay. And so I just know, you know, to be in the space that you're at, that's really tough. So I just want to say I'm really sorry that you're having that experience. The one thing I will say is, yes, it is possible, okay, for people to fall back in love with each other. And I am a full, an absolute true example of that. Before I came across what I'm teaching you now and what I've adapted over many years, I thought I was no longer in love with my husband. In fact, I said that to him. I told my husband, I don't love you anymore. I don't think we have anything in common. And I think the best thing we need to do is separate. Truly, truly, truly. My husband's so shy. I wish I could get him on one of these because he would say, yep, she did say that to me. He'd back that up. But this is the last thing my husband would ever do in his life. So that's where we were. And, you know, I really wasn't, I'd lost all faith, all hope. If I hadn't come across this, we'd be divorced. 100% we'd be divorced, because I truly, in my mind, believed that the only way forward was for us to separate, even though that meant all sorts of awful things because we had kids and all the horrible stuff that goes along with that, right? So yes, it is, because through having this understanding in my life, through looking in this direction, I fell back in love with my husband. And I wasn't looking to, right? I really want to say that as well. I actually just wanted to feel better, because I was really struggling around a number of things in my life, and I was having panic attacks, and I wasn't sleeping, and I was stressed, and a whole other thing. So I really did this not even looking for that result, but that is absolutely what came out of it. And, you know, that was, I mean, my husband and I will have celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary this October. We were 6.5 years into our marriage when I came across that. So, yep, people can fall in love with each other. I often get people that come to me and say, you are our last hope, Fiona, and are able to turn things around purely by what they learn here, because it has you look at things in a way you can never imagine, truly, through a completely different set of eyes, which creates a completely different set of feelings and experiences, okay? And it's hard to imagine where you are now, but that is what happens. Our reality around things completely changes. Mel, how long do we have access? Yeah, you have access to the material for 12 months. So that's all the call recordings, etc. It's an 8-week program, which, you know, you've got live calls in. You can do over kind of 12 weeks, I guess, but you can go back and do it again and again and again. You've got access to live calls for 12 weeks and the material for 12 months. And this amazing, wonderful community of people. Our Facebook group is truly remarkable. It's beautiful. It's a family. That's what they call themselves, a family. There's no ego in there, nobody making each other wrong. It's just a really safe space to ask questions and get what you need. There are men and women in there, just as, you know, lots of men, lots of women. And, you know, it's a discovery around what it is to be human, the sameness that is in many of us, and a completely different way to relate to yourself, to others, to everything. And it just ripples out in places you can't even imagine. And I hear this from my students all the time. Okay. Oh, thanks, Julie. I signed up 4 weeks ago and it's a year program. I have learned in the first 3 modules so much. If I'd had this years ago, I wouldn't be divorced. Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing that, Julie. Yeah, a lot of people have say that. Thanks, Peter. A truly life-changing learning. Yeah, absolutely it is. And it just feels amazing to look at life through this lens. Look at yourself, look at the people around you, look at life truly through this lens. It enables you to handle life's challenges with far more ease and grace and calm. And you can imagine, obviously, in relationships, how we handle life's challenges impacts our relationships, right? Truly it does. So these are the places that it ripples out. Gives you this capacity to handle more with less thinking, less stress, less overwhelm. There's more of you on offer. Yes. Okay. What if you have a husband who thinks he does nothing wrong and doesn't need to improve themselves in the relationship? Look, I don't know the ins and outs, Mel, of that. All I can say to you is what I have found is that when someone's energy changes, it evokes something different in someone else. So when goodwill is low, people go into their little fortress, right? They're kind of like this. So someone will say something and all I do is just bounce it off. You know what I mean? Like they'll go, no, it's not me, it's you. That is often a sign of very low goodwill. Now, I just want to address something here because the term narcissist gets thrown around and all of those sorts of things. Definitely people can exhibit narcissistic behavior, but that does not make them a narcissist. There is a very massive difference between those two things, okay? And we are far too quick to put the narcissist label on someone. Someone who is shut down is not a narcissist. Someone who is projecting blame is not necessarily a narcissist, just someone who's very stuck and does not know how to express themselves. They're so caught up in their thinking, they're so caught up in their own head that they just don't know how to get past that. All right. And so, I teach you how to relate to your thinking very differently. And what does that do? It gives you options that you just don't have right now. So, I've had people, we've got a lady, Leanne, who made a post just a couple of months ago about a similar thing to you, Mel. She said, I'm married to a man who's like a real bloke's bloke. He likes to go out and do stuff. And he would often just leave me all the time and be in his workshop. Or he'd be out on the weekend with his mates. And she said, through what I've learned, so she's just unrelatable, it's just her, it has completely changed our relationship around. My husband wants to spend time with me. We are spending time together. He's not just disappearing as soon as he can out to his workshop. He's actually sitting with me. We're talking. We're connected. We're having conversations at a level we've never, ever, ever, ever had before. And she said, my husband said to me the other day that we are closer than we have. He said, our relationship is the best it's ever been. I can't believe it. And she said, I know that's because of how I've changed and how I'm showing up. It's hard to get your head around this, okay? But it is one of those things that you've got to experience to really see for yourself. When your energy changes, truly changes, it evokes something in someone else. Because we are energetic beings first and foremost. We are bouncing off each other energetically before we are anything else, right? We truly are. For some of you might say that's a bit woo-woo. Just think about this for a second. Have you ever walked into a room and there's been someone standing in the corner and you're like, oh, they've got a weird vibe. Oh, I don't know about them. Gee, right? Everyone's had an experience of that. Okay, that's you responding to someone's energetic frequency. So whether you think it's woo-woo or not, it's just the way things work. It's what happens. Now, in a relationship, this can become one where it's very caustic, where the energy is almost selfish in a way because people are withholding. Because they're nervous, they struggle to be vulnerable, they struggle to let go, they struggle to show up because they're worried about what they're going to get back, right? This is what happens when goodwill drops. So your whole energy becomes tight and it becomes, it just doesn't create a safe space for someone else. So then there are people who react differently to that. Some people will retreat into their own shells and just kind of, say, no, it's me, it's you. Okay? Some people will overfunction. Okay, the amount of people that overfunction and then their partner underfunctions and then they get resentful and frustrated by that. Okay, this is all the things that kind of can create things like that. So without knowing the ins and outs, Mel, all I would say to you is you'd be amazed at what an impact one person can have. And if nothing else, the feeling that you get from living from this understanding is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Truly. Even if my husband and I had divorced, I would still say having this understanding in my life is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me because I have a far greater level of well-being, a far greater level of calm. I feel more present, connected to life. I feel like I can handle the stuff that life throws my way with a lot more well-being. My relationship with my children is much better. I like myself more. And I didn't like myself very much, if I was completely honest with you, at all. I didn't like the way I would handle things. I didn't like the fact that I was so angry. I didn't like the fact that I would get so stressed. I didn't think very highly of myself. And I probably didn't appreciate how much of an impact that had on the people around me. Because, when you don't feel so great about you, when you don't have a high opinion of you, you take things personally. You operate from insecurities. You become the one that finds it harder to move on and let go of things. And all of those have ripple effects, right? Mick, it always seems like we have to be the ones that have to do the work. Why? Great question, Mick. I get asked that question a lot. And it's kind of like, well, someone's got to do something. Why can't it be you? Like, you know what I mean? This is called the work ethic of love, guys. Truly. And, I would rather be the one that takes action and learns this stuff. Why? Because I get to benefit from it. It's very empowering. Someone has to start somewhere. Why can't it be you? Right? You're here because you get called to. You've been called to and you've listened. We're all getting called to things, whether we know it or not. And, a lot of us are asleep at the wheel of our own lives. What you learn in Relatable will actually have you wake up. They don't get the easy part. Not at all. That's not true. They don't. That's not true. That's your ego talking. They do not get the easy part, right? Truly. You get the easy part because you have a lot more freedom over your own mind that person does not have. And I'll take freedom over my own mind every single day of the week. To me, that's the easy part. That's the empowering part. That's the freeing part. I'll take that every day of the week. Now, anything that you learn in life requires you to expand. Okay? We are here to expand. If you are not expanding, you get stuck. Your life becomes like Groundhog Day and it's just round and round the same things. That's feedback to you that you're not expanding. There's always an invitation to expand on offer. It's up to you whether you're going to take it or not. Okay? But truly, I'll take expanding over repeating any single day of the week. Julie, I had a really bad day Tuesday, and instead of showing up nasty, I laughed at the circumstances and told my employees that I was feeling like I was in a pressure cooker. I asked for them to make sure I get lunch and to please laugh at me. My energy went up, I felt better, and we all laughed together. It was a relatable program that allowed me to show up loving instead of cranky. It was the best. Good for you, Julie. I love it. Good on you. That's it. This is what I mean. You all of a sudden get options in a moment of now that you've never seen before. Now, when you have options that you've never seen before, it's super empowering. Instead of just doing what you've always done and then regretting afterwards, why did I do that? Why did I say that? How come I showed up that way? What's the matter with me? All of that stuff that goes round and round in our head. You got options. Options are a wonderful thing. It's Groundhog. Is there a day called Groundhog Day in the US? Is that actually even a thing? Really? I did not. Wow. Well, there you go. That's very, very timely, isn't it? I did not know Groundhog Day was even a thing. Michael. Hey, Michael. Wife is telling me she's done, etc. Wants actions, not words, but I don't see where I'm going wrong. I take care of the kids. I tend to the cows, cook. I'm not sure what more I need to do. Oh, Michael. Okay. Great question. I'm going to guess, Michael, and I look without knowing anything, but I really want you, and this is a really great thing for all of you to know. It is not about what you do. It's about the space you're in when you do it. The feeling you are in is more important than anything. Okay? It's more important than anything. It's not about what you're doing. So think about this for a second. And I don't know anything about you, Michael, so I'm not saying this is the case with you. But if you are going through these things like cooking for the kids because you really want someone to notice and give you praise and notice, look what I'm doing, look what I'm doing, look what I'm doing. If you're If you're cooking and you're looking for people to say, look at what I did, look what I did, look what I did. Or if you're doing those things from a place of resentment, why the hell do I always have to be the one to do those things? Look at them sitting over there on their phone whilst I'm doing all of this. I can't believe that. They've gone out. They're getting their hair done while I'm doing this. Oh, great. And apparently I don't do enough. And you've got all of that going on in your head, right? So you've got to understand it's creating a feeling, right? It's creating an energy. And it's taking away from what you're doing. Okay. So there's a few things to understand. I have had people come to me and ask me that question, right? Especially men come and ask me that question. My wife is unhappy and I'm doing all of this stuff. And then we start working together and we realize there's a whole undercurrent here that's not being addressed. You can't do something over the top of an undercurrent and expect to get traction, right? I'm going to say that again. You can't do something over the top of an undercurrent and expect to get traction. Doing's only one part of it. The feeling you're in drives the doing. I'm telling you it does. Okay. This is what I teach in the first 2 modules of Relatable. Okay. And so people actually truly get this and go, that's where a lot of aha moments happen. Massive aha moments. Excuse me. My tea. So if you don't have any awareness of that and you're doing over the top of looking for recognition, wanting to please, resentment, frustration, anger, justification, self-righteousness, this is often what's underlying those things. Or if you're doing it with no energy at all, you're just like there's nothing coming to the table, then there's nothing just for someone to bounce off, right? There's no energy for someone to bounce off. It's just like if you're like you could be someone who's really withdrawn and quiet. Wife comes home and yep, I've looked after the kids. I've made dinner. I've done this, but there's no connection. You're not present. You're not listening. You're not bringing something to the table. Your actions just won't be enough. I really hope that helps, Michael. It's a really good question that you've asked and a really common thing, super common thing that I see where people are like confused. I don't understand. Again, if you're at all interested in wanting to know the answers to those things and knowing more about it, I teach it in Relatable. And as I said earlier, the price is going up this week considerably. It will never be at the price it is at again. By this time next week, the price will have gone up. Okay. All right, guys. Oh, well, we're at 42 minutes. My God, where did 42 minutes go? I have to go. I hope this was helpful to you all. Thanks so much for being here. If you've got a question that you want to ask me, you can send it to hello@fionalukeis.com.au and I will answer it for you next Friday. And if you want to join Relatable, like I said, the price is going up this time next Friday. It will be a lot more expensive than it is now. So now's the time if you are on the fence. All right. Take care, everyone. See you next week. Ciao.